simply stated, I'm gonna go ahead and do my makeup and I'm gonna get into the show material today. So morning, how are you? I guess it's 11:50, so we're still in morning, huh? So, yeah, coffee time. Oh, thanks. Stay safe. I am. Huh. As best I can. I don't go out much to do anything right now, so just focusing on work stuff and life, basically. go ahead and let's see, put this one in high user, and then we'll go ahead and put him in. Let's see. Okay, so I went and deleted, well, hid the one that was putting in too much stuff with like key phrasing. I don't think we have time for that, so it's like trying to get a little show for YouTube done. We don't need that on it. Graduate of Nova Community College, that's me down in Virginia. So I'll say hi to all them today, also into UVA. So those are the schools I actually went to for my college education, just in case I need to be reminded again. Wouldn't want the idiots from Luther College in Iowa, the labor camp, to get confused. That's why we make the show, right? Yeah, no confusion. No confusion on is. The shows are also made as part of a process of doing reports for Northern Border Patrol, which I became an official volunteer for back like over 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, modern day issues is you really have to be careful about people trying to put keyword phrasing into like your YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anything. I mean, obviously, some people don't know that, or you're innocent in it. But if you think that someone's doing that at all, just find a way to delete it, block it, or like definitely don't bother interacting. You know what I mean? Current day issue. I did see there were some. I don't know if this is actually true. Somebody was trying to lodge a suit against Facebook and YouTube. I couldn't take that seriously at all because there's too many people out of the Russian and Chinese groups out of what was, Hollywood, which doesn't exist. A bunch of hate groups that were mad because so many of us moved on and started our own platforms and places to do entertainment from and information sharing that weren't through them anymore. So it just looks like, it's every weirdo grandma from China or Russia is mad that she can't, or he can't, those governments can't control our media entirely anymore. There was a problem with this with Patrick Witzel in the 80s. He's a huge pedophile in old Russian KGB, now called FSB, getting angry because he didn't want people using cable access in this country. So cable access was shut down. YouTube's like the new cable access. So is Facebook. Facebook is a lot bigger than your old Hollywood dorks that people don't even want to see. How irrelevant are these people when they're getting mad at the rest of us for using Instagram or TikTok? Because what, they think then we'll go back to focusing on them? Because nobody would. I mean, most of the country and the rest of the world has been pretty aware of the issues with kids being trafficked and labor trafficked and people being victims of it, including the community itself that's moved on from what the people used to be part of it for like decades. So just really petty, weird stuff. I don't even know if it's true, so it just looks kind of pathetic. Like, remember Holly Berry, the one that was running around Luther College in a fat suit? and it's also Shonda Rhimes, and like couldn't write her own series. I was trafficked to write it, and then today, apparently was still running around like Western Michigan, Northwestern Michigan, trying to traffic people up into her city in a fat suit. Russian, not not actually a black person, not even like a mixed race person, just from a Russian out in Devonport. So probably about as real as the cartoon drawing. So okay, so let's go through the topics for today, and then there will be a singing this episode. I think there was more than a singing in the last episode, so last episode's last season, season 4 was a lot of singing, so people could see all that. I do have a new release out today. It's a song called Soon, and we'll see what happens. I'm dealing with some current stalking issues, and I've got the music and everything all locked up tight so nobody can have it, but when I release it, it may be, I mean, I have no idea about timelines. You know, be forthcoming more stuff, but for me, the main issue is more because the music industry isn't really profitable. As we've discussed in previous shows, the biggest problem with it is that it's mostly used to run drugs, kids, basically trafficking. So, you know, if, like, I'm not going to do any of that to pay for an album. And I do other work to actually make my living when I can. The reality is that, you know, I'm just basically keeping it out of the hands of someone, you know, Taylor Swift or her people who Taylor Swift pretends to be an artist and doesn't produce anything or make anything, who pretty famously trafficked me. For those of you who say, well, I didn't know about that, well, stop hearing your news from Katie Couric, who literally was one of the people that set up all these quote-unquote investigations. You know, stop getting your information from Savannah Guthrie, who literally has people, like literally had some poor old woman beat up and kidnapped or even murdered to make news stories, and in reality it's probably someone she just trafficked and murdered. Yeah, the point of making the shows is so that us of you understanding accuracy in media in the U.S. Like the problem is like 75% of them are gangbangers. It's been an issue since the 80s. You know, where's the address on it? Accountability. As many of you know, the FBI itself has been downgraded because it has over 40% of its employees are from Booz Allen Hamilton, meaning it's no longer considered a government agency. Yet, how many of you have actually wasted time or been insulted by bullshit hearings in Congress where they actually go to the FBI and expect them to explain anything more? Like, when are we going to get rid of the FBI? It's a contracting group. There's no reason you can fire it. I don't think they went far enough with getting rid of Christopher Wray. I think it's really time to just call it what it is, a dumb private organization that does nothing for us and only serves the interests of Russia and China, and just get rid of it. Because they're apparently still running investigations the way they used to with, so they don't do real investigations, they just steal from people. And as far as actual investigations go, the U.S. government at multiple levels does investigations all the time. I've been an investigator myself. I've had a security clearance, done investigations myself. And people hire private investigators all the time. So usually if there's a real investigation going on, people don't sit around and talk about it. You got some weirdo person up in your face saying it's an investigation and they're like stealing everything. That's just a thief. And that's unfortunately all the FBI has been. So I have to address that today because there's some current issues that they're just not handling very well, and I'm pretty much sick of it. They're more the problem than they are the solution. And, you know, I spent 19 years in the Washington, D.C. area and worked for the government myself, the U.S. government. Worked for a federal contracting group, and a very good one. Home and Senior Care, which is a Fortune 400 company. And I can tell you that I came up not against Obama's people static on it. They were actually grateful for my help with reporting on the issues with Michelle Obama. But Trump's people were not supportive. I don't think George W. Bush's people liked it, and neither did Clinton's. Because their fundraising groups were all involved in trafficking older people, the elderly, and stealing from them, frankly, in order to fund campaigns. And frankly, they resent any contracting group that isn't corrupt. You know, if you're not CAC, Lilad, Accenture, Booz Allen Hamilton, which are Russian and Chinese companies, and they just don't, they're not going to like you. Now, it's been important. Well, we're in a modern era where I'm not sure the presidency has the same amount of respect that it once had. It's become like some weird, I don't think it's much different than an Oscar contestant entry. Something a person stole money for, paid to be in, and presents it on TV, and people know that it's not really worth anything. You're looking at a current lame duck presidency, basically. President Trump took an $8 billion payment back in January for TikTok, not to buy TikTok himself, but to facilitate the sale of it, from a known pedophile group, which is called Silver Lake, which runs Endeavor Corp, and has actually been running Endeavor Corp partially for Patrick Witzel and those guys since the 80s. So, massive terrorists at large, gangs at large, presidential administration is doing nothing to stop any of it, and pretty quickly lost respect in this country. So, he's about as popular as George W. Bush at this point. And it's important to remember, bizarrely, that George W. Bush also came from the Democratic Party, and so did Trump. I don't know where it's going to go, but I also need to know you're looking at a current situation with John Thune's wife being Becky Traynor from Luther College, which is where George W. Bush, who was actually Terry Lane, used to hang out, 1998 to 2002 range. Trained in Chinese MS systems and has spent literally decades stalking and abusing people in the U.S. and openly sending signals for China, as well as having been already exposed by the New York Times in the 90s with its mom on the cover of it as a member of the Russian, government, working at Moscow McDonald's at the time, but they'd come over through Iran. So he's currently married to an Iranian woman who openly sends Chinese MMS signals, and you would say spy. Well, a spy wouldn't be known. This person's overtly hostile, was set to marry Thune decades ago, and Thune unfortunately has a history of ordering women up to be beaten on, apparently. So is Fetterman, who's also associated with the labor camp in Iowa that they call Luther College, not a real college, right? So, those are your pointers for this morning, things to remember. I'm going to go through, I have no idea if we'll get another show done before Easter. We'll probably have a show on Sunday, I hope. But, I try to bring as much positivity as possible into people's lives, confirming what you know about life. I think the one thing I have to go into this morning as far as education is, remember what I said about the Haunted Mansion down at Disney World? So you can go watch footage on that on YouTube, actually, if you'd like, or even watch footage of it from Disney World. But Walt Disney as a creator spent a huge amount of time trying to inform and educate the public on what was really going on with some of these Russian and Chinese issues. And part of that was actually going ahead and creating the Haunted Mansion, where you could see these sort of spectrums that look like ghosts, and they're not. And they would appear to you in the windows or, on your ride, look over next to you, it's not there. I mean, you can watch it. We've gone through this before. Um, Another example would be like the It's a Small World ride with the doll Small of the World mechanically playing instruments and singing. Walt Disney really wanted the public to know what was going on. He found a really fun educational way to do it. As I jokingly said in the past, we all like to think of Epcot as being the boring part of Disney where everyone got educated, but really the most educational part of Disney World probably is the Magic Kingdom, where they show you all the spectral magic. And a lot of it is just stuff that people think came out of Hollywood, but it's actually stuff that came out of old military war systems. So, if you're staying in a house and you see like a bizarre spectrum coming at you, it's like a ghost, that's a spectrum created image projection. It's not a ghost. So, you're not nuts. You're just staying in the property of an asshole with too much time on their hands. It's probably from Russia or China. Anyways, I'm going to lower this down a little bit. I noticed the angle's a little high. Yeah, unfortunately, finding properties to stay on in the U.S. today that are safe, kind of a major current issue, unfortunately, to many of them bought up by people from Russia and China that are frankly hostile to the rest of us. So, also, I keep watching this video and I'm like, I really need a facial. That's what I think when I look at it. I'm like, I need more cream, more facials. We're into April now, and it's been the hardest part of the winter when my skin gives up. Like, by October, it always looks like very well drenched and no longer thirsty, but March and April, my skin looks so dry no matter how hard I work at it. Like, seriously, I put cream on it every day. But let's move on, though, to do some odds and ends here. Beyond the talking points I just gave you, those are all reminders. For those of you who don't understand some of this, I really do have a relationship with the Supreme Court as well as Northern Border Patrol, Department of Justice, ACLU, the Leadership Institute, the governments of South Korea, the English consulate, all their host countries. So it's not just for the U.S., it's for literally everybody, and for all of you around the world who are concerned about labor issues. Yeah, so, but let's go through some stuff. We're going to keep taking things apart. What I want to note for you this morning, actually, now we're in the afternoon, right? Just remember that Katie Couric is a really nasty labor trafficker, works for the Russian FSB, and actually electrocutes people. So please, for those of you who are interested in the media industry, stay away from NBC. It can be hard to think. A lot of them dress up and hide themselves. They stalk people. Katie Couric has a long history of stalking women in this country and murdering them who weren't Russian or Chinese. And most of the murders that she's covered in her career as a quote-unquote journalist, because she's not a real journalist, she's a murderer, works for the government of Russia, have been set up to kill U.S. citizens and women and men who are talented. Like those you saw of Lauren Rollo and Aaron Gordon in Janesville, Wisconsin. I'm not going to keep going through and quoting every murder. I'm going to stick with those two. You also have to know Aaron Gordon currently because that was the person that Pam Bondi had as her kid back in Wisconsin before she killed her, an organ trafficker. And Pam was directly tied to some of my molars in the back being stolen. One of the fallacies I went through growing up dealing with labor trafficking was that Susan Wilhelm, who were Russian FSB, KGB, used to tell me that I had really bad ugly teeth. And I went down to D.C., lived there for 19 years, and the U.S. government went, no, you have excellent teeth. And worse, the stupid, crazy Russian woman stole some of them and sold them for money. But yeah, I still have all my teeth. They're very strong, and otherwise, and the ones that were trafficked and stolen. And there's a bizarre story around that in Janesville, Wisconsin, with the surgeon who removed them in some kind of weird staged fight with her. It was just ridiculous. Her pretending that she was being asked to have sex with him or something crazy as a cover, but it didn't work. Part of the evidence I got for getting a productive order against these people and getting away from them was literally the fact that they took some of my molars in the very back and sold them. But also makes you kind of wonder about dentists, because part of the investigation is that the dental, periodontic, orthodontic community is being extremely suspicious because they've gone along with those up so many times. There's too many of them that'll just rush to try and take a tooth out. Think, why would they want it when it doesn't make that much money and they make more fixing your tooth? Oh, because they want to sell it. Yeah. So, I actually remember because I wanted to keep the molars that they had removed and they refused to let me have them and sold them. So anytime you deal with a dentist that wants to remove a tooth but won't let you keep it, I'm sorry if you're in that kind of a situation, but they're definitely an organ trafficker. It's called organ trafficking, and you can go ahead and file on it, not for a lawsuit, but you would file on it legally against them for it through the, well, whatever systems you want. I'm not going to tell you where to go because I don't want somebody to erase your opportunities to report it, but definitely make sure you document it all over the place. So Blake McGrath, former Britney Spears performer, choreographer. I noticed he's followed a lot of my shows on OnlyFans. That's cool. He actually used some of my choreography for some of his shows at the airports. I didn't have any problem with that because he paid for the access on OnlyFans. So that's cool. I am going to let you all know that the season finale of Simply Dancing for the Holidays with Deborah is coming up, and it'll be my last episode for a while. Probably sometime soon. I also have to go through and say this as well. Lisa Stickett Lewis, I've reported her again. She used to be the former wire sheriff for the U.S. was moved back in the 2010 era. She's a Trump person, and also apparently is Brett Ratner. So poses Brett Ratner was responsible for one of the setups to go through that I went through as far as all the people I do work for and get paid all the way through to Tate McRae. Trump person, former Clinton person, Clintonite, MAGA cult. Apparently also like George W. Bush, so there's like a following there of them, really liked H.W. Bush, didn't like Reagan. So, yeah, the child trafficking, the labor trafficking, the organ trafficking groups, they kind of all follow. So, many of you know I got out of boards altogether when Trump started running for president the first time. Yeah, I left in the 2015 era. It was... Oh no, wait a minute, when did I found it? Yeah, 2015. So, that was also the time that I started working at Home Health, went back and got my associate's degree in the sciences. I don't line these issues up by political party. I line them up by, do you believe in civil rights? Do you believe in people living their lives freely and not as slaves? Like that kind of thing. Because it really isn't a Republican-Democrat divide now. It was. At one time, Clinton had, literally, Trump was over, Clinton was over in the Democratic Party. We were just George Bush, the Republican Party, who were the problem. But most of them were over in the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party started working to, expel them. Really, what's been going on is there's been movement by both parties to, sort of, the wheat from the chaff, pull out the labor traffickers into their own weirdo groups, so the rest of us could avoid them, of course. I didn't go to any political events today and retired from boards, in 2015. I definitely consider myself a Republican Party member, but I'm really more in the, Liberty, the party was founded, Ripon, Wisconsin, anti-slavery group, which is the actual base of the party. So, not Pam Bondi. Pam's pretty much a nut job, neocon, baby trafficker. If you need a label, but if you just call me a Republican and think I'm a Trump person, then you don't really understand politics well enough and you'd be wrong, so. But as far as the situation, Lisa Stickett Lewis, she was in Petoskey last year. She always used government a significant amount of money. This current administration is not charging her any of it. And apparently she was a part of Luther College in Iowa. I don't remember seeing her there, but she may have been dressed up as someone else there. She's in the weirdo Hasty Pudding Club that likes to do costumes. Thanks, people don't know who they are, but somebody else now will be able to figure it out. The truth is, you really can't disguise yourself entirely in any country in the world because of bioinformatics, and even MI6 admitted this in 2025. What is a spy if they can't really have a cover anymore? The bioinformatics will almost always identify you at some point unless you know how to work against those too. If you have stalkers like I do, usually on the move, the best hope for anyone dealing with it is to find situations and places where their behaviors are simply not accepted. So, I have found in Michigan, as hard as things have been with all the weird hate groups, and I think there's too many terrorists trying to hide out up here. But maybe that's everywhere now. It's definitely an environment that's less conducive to them doing whatever they want to, unlike Virginia. Or maybe even the area of Maryland around D.C. So, yeah. Lisa Stickett Lewis engaged in too many setups to try to kill other women who attended GOP meetings that weren't going to be part of the surge for Trump and Clintonite stuff and people say Epstein. By the way, I can't think of anything more ridiculous than the coverage on Epstein. Remember that Katie Couric came to me in the 90s and said she wanted me to go through with the investigation. There was no investigation. It was just a bunch of women being trafficked and abused. And this thing was saying it was all Epstein's island. It's an island now. It was never an island. The trafficking happened all over the world. It happened in Florida, it happened in Iowa, it happened in Wisconsin, it happened in New York, it happened in LA. I mean, the English have been pissed off about it, but any story you get from the news, so-called news media, saying it's about some specific event, some island, an island. That's part of the group that Booz Allen Hamilton that was trying to set a bunch of fake suits to funnel money around instead of doing actual charges. And really, at this point, you'd be looking at Donald Trump himself going to sit in prison cell on Bill Clinton over it. And Patrick Wetzel, and Aaron Emanuel, and Caroline Silver, and Sam Silver, who some of you know is Corey Feldman. I don't know what other aliases that Caroline used, but she's got more than enough pictures out there for the rest of you, and she's well known enough in the industry, the Hollywood industry, for the number of them to simply turn, which is what I think the rest of you who are still around need to do. Okay. I also know Peter Lisa Stick and Lewis served time in a psych ward in Wisconsin. Actually, the state of Wisconsin would still have her back in one of those psychiatric prisons. They had also wanted to put Caroline Silver in one back in the 90s and couldn't keep her because of Russian FSB activity. For all I know, maybe she's still living at the house on 907 Cambridge Drive in Janesville. And I mean Caroline Silver. There's a new ad out that's really weird called Homoglow for a cleaning company. It's only supposed to be $19 for cleaning and changing topics. What? That sounds like labor trafficking. I can't imagine any company that would put people for $19 the whole house is going to be cleaned. What are they paying the staff? Like, is this a joke? That can't be real. Changing topics again, I need to warn you about a film coming out of Luther College called Russia FSB. It's got a lot of weird imaging and graphics in it. Might even make this throw up called Project Hail Mary. Stay away from it. It's just another weird hate group project out of the Russian FSB. Most of you probably didn't watch movies anymore anyways, but believe me, it's not going to be an inspiring film, and it might seriously screw up your brain. It's got some neurological, like, icky crap in it. It's one that was actually produced and put together by Cameron Diaz, who also tries to be Jennifer Garner, but as most of you all know from following shows, it's actually also Elizabeth Bandy, so skip Project Hail Mary. Not going to be good for you mentally. It's one of the ones that comes out of a cult group that's obsessed with raping and beating on kids. By the way, I remind myself this every day. I don't think any of us realize how hostile and weird some of these groups that are so obsessed with trafficking kids are, but they really are. They really are very hostile and nasty. And they spend a lot of time creating subterfuge and bad information to mess up people's lives. So it's important to be aware of what that is and not, protect your brain. So, yeah. I mean, if you're still confused about it, that's, literally an organ trafficking, child trafficking group. Let's see. I don't understand why, but for whatever reason, Ben Stiller was up in Michigan, so I finally made my decision on him. Many of us had thought he was interested in Zoolander because, said, oh, maybe the movie was taken away from him. That's why it had all the weird cult of ISIS crap. It suddenly switches in the beginning of the film. I knew that Caroline Silver had worked on it, out of Endeavor Corp to change it. I didn't realize that it was going to turn out that, like, everyone thought maybe it was just taken away from Ben. Ben's pretty guilty in the way it was made, and the way it turned out, so he's just another one. He's probably find out he's Russian. A waste of time. So no, I will not be covering that one either, or being involved in this weird obfuscation crap that has led to most of us not even wanting to watch movies anymore, because I certainly don't watch them at all. So, also I had to cover about the stuff about the Haunted Mansion. I noticed there's a new series with some from the English on it, like Jack Osborne on it, a few other people, covering people's like haunted homes. All the stuff they're covering is literally done with radio signals, usually by terrorist groups. These aren't ghosts or even paranormal events. It's military weapon systems that make those. And so I just feel like it's like so hugely unfair to the public if you, an uninformed viewer, watching it and think the place is haunted. And instead it's like some weirdo screwing with you at it. Like an actual person. But not a ghost. So many of us were frightened in our lives by, someone else being creepy to us. And I don't know. Seriously used to lie and say that they were, it's a very old Russian KGB tactic. Say, oh, it's a ghost, It's, no. It's you, right? So. Change of topic again. Project Wi-Fi ads with Jurassic Park CGI. I have to thank them for making that. Project Wi-Fi has been taking old Jurassic Park footage and putting in their own people and then reworking the characters with CGI to say what they want them to. I don't know if any of you have time to look up the commercials, but if you see them, it's a really good example of how far the industry has gone with manipulating people's images. Like I said, a lot of stuff can be used for bad or good. Like Disney wanted to educate people with it. So it's just important to know that that's actually going on. Because I myself was labor trafficked. My images were used incorrectly. And my mom, unfortunately, was a victim of the Epstein cult, and her images were pretty clearly abused, I guess is the way you put it. So, as opposed to those commercials where they're using it in a way that's productive. Right? But if you want to see an example of how far our technology has gone, and how accessible it is and cheaply now, those commercials are a really good example. And no, I don't criticize them for it. I'm grateful to them for doing it. Let's see. Okay, so I'm sure some of you saw this or didn't see this. TLC and Vogue and Salt and Pepper performed over the last weekend, and they put together a performance that was on Fox. And it's important to know all that because TMZ did some interviews with Chili afterwards. TMZ doesn't normally interview people unless they're somehow like implicated or in trouble. They might not even do an interview with them. It's very negative, but they'll feature them just so you know that there's actually a problem with them. And so what I would say about all that is that apparently Chili gave about $900 to Donald Trump in 2024. I'm not sure that's enough money to make sense, but I wouldn't call her necessarily a traitor, but I think the issue is that she was implicated in the death of Left Eye, and no one's really covered it properly. They just haven't. So, I don't know if $900 to Trump is going to do it. I mean, if the rest of you want to write her off over that or use that as an excuse, that's certainly one way to do it. But I couldn't see any signs of her lip syncing or not actually performing at it, so. I need to know, I'm going through some stuff. I finally dug up where he tried to take one of the songs that I had released. It's out today, but he tried to use some stuff from it. He's not really talented enough to use most of my work effectively, but he tried to use some of it to make, I don't know, music for some obscure artist that probably couldn't have done anything on their own. That's not an actual artist, just one of his dumb people from the Russian FSB. Of course, as you know, that's Gary Greg Levino, who was fired and shot Renee Good, basically. Set her up to be shot and killed and also ex-pregnant. So, I'm not going to praise the administration for even bothering to fire these people. Donald Trump knew who Doug Fleming was when he brought him in to get the business spending him in the first place. And really not bringing Christy Noem, who actually haven't seen Megyn Kelly either. By the way, there was some false footage put out saying that Donald Trump doesn't like Megyn Kelly. Donald Trump loves Megyn Kelly. They're both in the Weird Pervert Club. They're both in the Weird Pervert Tracker Club of neocons who like to do fake setups and murder innocent people and think they're going to cover the whole thing up with journalism, and people doing the journalism aren't real journalists. Megyn Kelly's not one, neither is Kate Couric, neither is Savannah Guthrie. So, neither is Matt Lauer. Yeah, topic changed slightly again, but this goes into the next topic. There's no need to solve the Nancy Guthrie case. Savannah Guthrie and Katie Couric are both well-known murderers. If you don't like history for it, the only thing you need to solve is who exactly has been holding up getting them actually. Because Kate Couric was in prison for about 10 years for being a spy for the Russian government. And for actively going in and breaking into U.S. systems and using them to hit people. I mean, actually hit people, but 10 years isn't be enough. That one needs to go away permanently. So I think you really need to look into where the holdup is on putting them away. Because this thing with the mom, like, I doubt that person's even related to Savannah Guthrie. And to remember that their actual management at Endeavor Corp, which is Russian and Chinese, actually outed them for all this stuff like 10 years ago. So, not even going to support them if they do get in trouble. And it was Michael Swanberg who did that. But, new topic, Donald Trump. Yeah, I had problems with Donald Trump himself making threats like 20 years ago about my albums. And I finally reported it, but now it's been reported abroad that I've been getting terrorist threat messages sent through my stuff to me, like through email phishing. And I finally just told a bunch of people about it, reported some different groups. But, these are neocons, they're Russian groups. It's also stuff that Donald Trump himself has said. No, they're not using his phrasing. This is stuff he has actually said. So, can't think of anything more petty than weird, but this is a guy who literally dressed up as a woman and wanted to play the lead in my high school musical at Parker High School in Wisconsin instead of working an actual job because he's some kind of dumb fucking freak. So, remember I was trained in the army, that's when I would have gone to work in it. But for the interference from these stupid hate groups that are out of Russia and China. So don't get paid to work in it today, and don't work in it. But then who really does anymore? Like, one of the issues with Russian and Chinese activity in the U.S. is they've pretty much destroyed the entertainment industry, at least as far as the rest of us making money off of it. There really isn't a good logical reason why I wouldn't be singing or starring in shows today, except there's simply just too much terrorism in the country for actual legitimate performers to perform, right? We just have a bunch of dorks that literally gun dad systems and don't perform at all, and they want to be called artists, but they don't write their own songs, and they don't know how to do anything on their own. So they just need to do this point, just simply shut them down, shut their pipelines down, which is what's happened. So they just don't have any material. It won't. So those of us who are actually artists can get back to doing our work, or just doing it for fun. So, but, it's not something I necessarily have to do. Obviously, if this work was, needed, then it wouldn't be a big deal for us to, simply do it. But the fact that it's not needed is exactly why it's okay for the rest of us to just simply back off and not bother. It isn't like a food bank, right? Not clean water supplies. Taylor Swift doesn't need free music to do, since it doesn't actually do that even. It's always been the issue, right? So, Halle Berry doesn't need to make movies. Halle Berry can go away. Quit bothering everyone. I usually know the Virginia governor is turned to be another Nazi. She's a Democrat, but she's a Trump person, and she was in with Clinton. Also, the people went by the name Dr. Fitzpatrick, and went by the name Megan Cully. That's the one that was supposed to be married to Baha Amir, turned to be a member of ISIS. Supposedly his father was a premier psychologist out of Egypt on child psychology, but that man later came forward with the U.S. government and other world governments and said that he was being held hostage by them. So she's not actually married to whatever guy is being portrayed in the media. She married another man who was part of the militant ISIS groups out of Northern Virginia. So yeah, I guess, forget Virginia for a while. It's going to be pretty dangerous to live down there if the current governor is one of those. Our last governor wasn't any good either, so unfortunately it sounds like it left at the right time. But it's certainly sad, right? Yeah. Also important to know that this current governor is friends with Jackie Lertzman, who also turned out to be Gwen Stefani. Jackie Lertzman, Gwen Stefani claimed to be Jewish at one point in her life. So they're both terrorists, and frankly, Gwen Stefani is Iranian. Has worked with Donald Hamilton for a long time. Both labor traffickers, labor trafficking Nazis, part of Endeavor Corporation. And frankly, Gwen at one point had worked in the Greenstone in Iraq and actually held up operations there and got people killed, U.S. soldiers killed, and undermined U.S. operations there on purpose for Donald Hamilton. And also Doug Fleming, who's also Greg Bovino. I think you can see the problem with the Iranian-Israeli conflict, if you want to call it that. It's been manufactured by these contracting groups that Trump is in with, because Trump worked with Donald Hamilton himself. And you need to remember that so far, both countries are just getting decimated. It basically looks like one big strip mining operation and one big, wash the money real estate building event. And it's not going to benefit the U.S. at all, nor anyone. So far, it's just brought everyone higher gas prices. Um, Thankfully, Congress did put a stay on Donald Trump's building of a new ballroom in the White House. I don't even know what to call that, but something had to be done to put a stop to some of this craziness. So, I need to note that a topic change again. Another journalist, researcher, influencer got in to the '90s model Claudia Schiffer story. Sorry, remember her? Really pretty girl in the '90s. She apparently was trafficked by the Russian FSB and sold to a man in the UAE who was part of the Russian FSB, and it's still stuck today. So Claudia Schiffer, modern day labor trafficking victim, was sold. I don't know where her location is, but she's somewhere in the UAE. Was labor trafficked and sold. So I guess I don't know what to say to her family, but my condolences. Maybe her situation was like mine when I was stuck dealing with the investigations down in DC, or stuck waiting the legal processes to get myself away from some of these people. But she's definitely a victim of labor trafficking today, and that's where she went. And that may implicate Claudia Schiffer's disappearance. Might actually indicate Sue Crawford or Helena Christensen. There's also the other woman. I'm trying to think of her name. There's another model. Let's look at this up for a second. There's another one that's really nasty that she went and messed up her face on purpose with a bunch of surgery. She's known for being a really nasty trafficker, but I wouldn't write off Cindy Crawford as being one either. I'm starting to think Cindy Crawford is actually a man, especially looking at the kid. Linda Evangelista. I don't know. Apparently Linda Evangelista has tried to give herself some innocence, but any of those women that were part of the groups that Claudia was in could have been, Naomi Campbell. The one I really suspect would be Tyra Banks. So, but I wouldn't write off that Cindy Crawford would have been responsible for that at this point. Another topic change again. So Kevin Costner, serial predator, Russian FSB, old KGB trafficker, child labor trafficker. Weirdo used to call me up when I was a kid and say, well, is your hair that bad? Is your hair that weird, honey? Like, creepy old man crap talk. Went on and on about how he had the right to rape and traffic kids, had me trafficked and went wild down in Florida. They closed the park. Company closed the park. Still free, still out trying to traffic people, paid for his trip to the whatever award show he was on over the winter, with the Whitney tribute. Definitely contributed to set up Whitney Houston being murdered. Used to claim he was just tickling my mom and he was actually having her raped in white parties. Yeah. Still free in the US. Belongs in prison. At any time, guys, anytime. It's worth noting as another slight topic change that Donald Trump was very supportive of Taylor Swift as a labor trafficker. She's part of El Tren de Aragua and the Russian FSB. It's actually a man. He decided not to go to the Super Bowl this year because he didn't want to be involved in their setup or one of his people got booed at. This year would have been Kevin Costner. Kevin just looked like a stupid idiot. People really didn't care much or pay attention. Tried to pretend like he was on the right side with all of it. He just wasn't. It's like, go away, rude pervert, dude. This is someone who was massively, literally running around DC screaming and yelling at 2010 that he had to have projects done for him. No, never pays. Has never paid for any work, not to me or anyone else, that we did on projects. Yellowstone and the NBA used to set up people who were obsessed with bestiality and horsecock, which is certainly him. So, topic change again. Maren Flag, Maren, first name Flag, Flagg. Has a trademark on the same name as Taylor Swift's album. Apparently is suing Taylor Swift and UMG Recordings for trademark infringement, unfair competition. I'm still trying to figure out where my lawsuit is going to happen. I'm going to get paid for all the work I did for that stupid bitch. Because I was beaten. Like, Taylor Swift actually owes prison time in the U.S., restitution, not just lawsuits. So whatever this Martin Flag thing is, I don't really think I'm going to respect for somebody that just wants to sue her or him. Like, Taylor Swift actually needs to go to prison. And I'm also very clearly owed money for, like, decades before. Like, wait, I don't think this whole trademark thing is going to work. Sounds too much like a setup for the two of them to funnel money back and forth. So, another topic change for those of you who are in Traverse City over the past couple of years. Actually, I'm gonna get some cran cream. The game's really dry. Brendan Fraser, some of you don't know him anymore. He went by the name Denver Stutzman up in Traverse City. Apparently was tied to some of the thefts and rapes there. I told him to stay away from me. I really don't sort of see him at all. He's trying to get funding for a new Mummy movie. I'm not interested in paying for it or supporting it. In fact, I would actually like to see the U.S. government do their job, whichever government of the U.S. wants to do it. You know, local, state, county, federal. But he was a part of the labor trafficking that went on for Russian RSB, Russian GRU, Chinese CCP, up around Traverse City, Michigan over the past couple of years, and terrorist attacks there. And strong relationship with Tulsi Gabbard, who doesn't really do anything in the U.S. intel or do with the U.S. Only wants to create whatever Russia and China would want. So I'm just going to go ahead and say at this point that I'm pretty sure Russia doesn't want another Mummy movie made because they don't need another bill added to the long list of bills they already owe, which is what would happen if you let him go ahead with making a film. So I don't really care about all the press releases they're going to put about their starting production. I was labor trafficked in the first Mummy movie and then got out of it, and Brandon spent years really stalking me through Al-Anon and AA groups, and so I'm just saying it very bluntly. You know, not a nice person, responsible for some of the BDSM films that have come out of the Grammys, Oscars, Academy Awards, Golden Globes. I'm sure you've all seen the footage of the last party after the Grammys, or was it the Academy Awards? No, the Academy Awards. With the guy, like, literally stuck, bent over himself with the candle stuck in his butt, being pulled along, he's probably dead. That's the kind of crap that Brendan likes to make in his free time. Along with Carlito. So, yeah, I got tired of it. He was too tied in with the rest of them, and it's just, you know, he's not a good manager. And, you know, sometimes it's just easier to flat out say for people, like, nobody believes you, nobody trusts you, you're part of a society of people, of terrorists, you know, 12-step groups that the rest of us don't go to or take part in. And frankly, Tiger played the group back in Janesville that thought it was okay to traffic and beat up on my mom and set up a bunch of extortion schemes for people who are of Russian or Chinese descent. I'm pretty sure Brendan's actually Iranian, but as most of you know, there's a circuit between Russia and Iran and China as far as business, most with Russia and China benefiting from all of it. And you also have to get it at this point that may also really be Israel with the amount of Russian activity there. Knowing also that Russia and activity in Israel and Iran is pretty much destroying both countries right now. So, another topic change, Dan Bongino, formerly of the FBI. What is the FBI again? Because that's not actually law enforcement officers, that's a bunch of lawyers, most of whom were employed by Booz Allen Hamilton. So, Dan Bongino, for those of you who didn't get it, that huggy bear face he did, he's Chinese CCP, so he's doing a hate monger masking for public appearances. He was also Chris Prevenice out of Dubuque, Iowa. In the 80s, for those of you who went to Table Mound or around the city back then. But, you know, he's part of the Chinese CCP terrorist groups. So he's using a facial masking that they use. You know, I don't know about being a law enforcement officer. I only knew somebody that worked as an MP, nurse practitioner, and frankly, how a lot of us that went to Table Mound back in Dubuque traffic to pay for his nurse practitioner education to get a doctorate in that field. But also, he may have a dual degree from one of these Russian and Chinese law schools. It's overpriced and ridiculous. So, you know, so some of the reasons the shows are made are just so the rest of them understand that we're all aware the information's going out. Like, you know, you don't have to file a FOIA. I mean, I'll just tell you what people are actually thinking, what's going on. But this idea that you're going to be welcome in this country as a part of a hate group, that attacks and abuses children. It's just ridiculous. So, moving on, we're going to do Madonna. I've determined after recent events in Michigan, especially the banking issues and diversity and theft there, that Salma Hayek was involved in, as well as McLaren Hospital System in Munson. They've had issues with this person that we know is also being Salma Hayek. I think that's also Madonna. I think they're the same person. The reason I say that is somebody finally got a hold of her cautioning and forced her to dress in such a way that's more obvious who she is in person, as well as her footage. But it's important to note that she was getting like way over excited doing Roots and Wayne before Iran, before the conflict with Iran started. You may know in Iran that this current administration currently put a bunch of private contractors into that the Pentagon doesn't even really support. Yeah, be careful with the news media you're seeing, because our Pentagon actually isn't on board with this thing. The one album I thought was really useful for me that I've used for Madonna is the one I wrote for her. And I was trying to cut her some slack as maybe someone who was not too guilty, but I'm now convinced that she's also Salma Hayek. And MI6, frankly, said not to trust her. And she had supposedly gone to them on my behalf, But she went along just like Dua Lipa did with using someone else's name instead of my actual name for work, and decided to just help herself and not pay me. So, relationship to Michael Swanberg and Patrick Wetzel, R. Emanuel, let's just move on. Besides, she hasn't had any new music in forever, and how many old lady songs can you do with people? And Dua Lipa too, Dumb old lady crap from Russia. But, they have no talent. I hate to say that about her even, but she had paid me in the 90s. I don't know what was wrong with her that she flipped out and decided not to let those guys do that to her. But she did. And it doesn't really, these recent events have been so off the wall that I'm, like, the DIA has been after her for not stripping or, Jesus stuff at concerts. This person is an at-large criminal that has gone into U.S. hospitals and messed with people getting their images taken, CAT scans, MRIs, X-rays, literally posed as a hospital employee who's abusive and beat on patients. And last I know got in trouble down on K Street Imaging down in Washington, D.C. Yeah, you see little weird funky women that look like either Salma Hayek or Madonna running around in the hospital systems in the U.S. or anywhere, posing as employees in CAT scans, CT, ultrasound, X-ray centers. It's probably her. The nicest we would just arrested already. Put him in prison so we can stop having these issues. This has gone on way too long. Another topic change. Britney Spears out of Endeavor Corp. Launching issues with child labor trafficking, drug trafficking. Now she's pulled out pictures of her son, supposedly. I have no idea if the kids would even be happy with those kinds of pictures. But the kids don't look happy at all. So I'm going to figure that it's just some weird, call it a publicity stunt. But no, Britney, nobody thinks you're a good person because you did some pictures with these two boys that you trafficked. Especially not when your ex, Kevin Federline, and his ex, not ex, or someone he may actually still be with, had to go ahead and raise them. Because you're some weird pervert who probably doesn't even sing at all. Maybe he dances. Maybe at least do that. But, I sang a bunch of Britney stuff. Wrote a bunch of stuff for her, didn't pay me for it. Jake Caroline Silverfront killed me over it, so... Yeah, I had a really nasty labor trafficking case with that company, and they've never paid for anything, so... Just a piece of advice, the new thing now is for people that are out of the Russian or Chinese CCP, especially Russians usually, to dress up like Detroit Lions with really obnoxious, not just wearing Detroit Lions fan gear, but really over the top with the jerseys and the hair, like bright red hair, nails, that whole thing right now. It's some kind of significant for them, at least in Michigan. So I wouldn't say anything to them about it. But like we're not in the season, so it's totally beyond weird actually for them to be that overdressed. I love the Detroit Lions; I think they're great, but it's some kind of reaction to one of their guys actually attacking a team member and having his leg, what did I say, injured back in 2024. Of course, we went through that. That was actually Frederick Steiner, who's now by the name Scott Livingston, and then also happens to be Megyn Kelly's husband. And would also actually be Christine Ohm's husband, by the way, with them doing the doubling around and different personalities. It's important to note that there's a new story about Christine Ohm's husband, Brian Noem, being a cross-dresser. I'm not sure, that may be the weirdest obfuscationist story I've heard yet, because the whole Christine Ohm character is over, but removed from the job as of the 30th. But it's pretty obvious Russian FSB has decided to try to use the story as a type of obfuscation in U.S. media. Point is, Brian Noem isn't from the U.S., he's from Russia, and I mean, you tell me he's in the Haiti Bunny Club and wants to cross-dress and be in women, well, yeah. But he's also Scott Livingston, he's also Frederick Steiner, and that's somebody that's worked for CACI, who's out in Hamilton. So I'd worry more about the fact that he's at large, and so does his actual wife, Megyn Kelly, who's also Megyn Kelly. He's gone by like 2 other aliases. Caitlin Collins, also Michelle Holtzbrinny. It's like 3 other aliases. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see the point of having any of these people in government jobs. Only to fire them and just let them walk off. So, like my hair. So just a reminder for some of you, as far as my history, I really was a Hollywood actress when I was far too young to be in that field of my childhood. And then I really did walk in a bunch of shows in my teens as a model. Cersei actually took me to Paris for one of them. It was sort of a horrific event where Wilhelm showed up and said they were going to take me off and have me get pregnant, and everyone was like crying, and I wasn't going to be allowed to work as a model. It certainly doesn't make Cindy Crawford or some of the other women that were big in the 90s look very good when there were so many of us that got beat up on. By the way, I have never bought into or liked the idea of, well, obviously bought into the idea that it was wrong or evil for people to work as models. No. I think if you want to work as an actor, as a model, I think if you want to make porn, if you can get employment, definitely work in the field and be employed in it. Most of the groups I know that quote-unquote religious reasons said they didn't want women modeling or acting or whatever some of this other stuff is, they all turn out to be people that were against women actually getting paid for the work. Believe me, all of them were perfectly fine with you or I or somebody else or your kid or your husband being trafficked for this stuff and not paid at all. So I don't have time for somebody who's like, oh, you know, so evil. Like, no, if they can get paid for it, great. The reality about most modeling work today is you're going to end up having to pay to be involved. Like, I've had recent opportunities extended to me. Same with, you know, beauty pageants where people would say, we'd love to have you if you'd like to pay this fee. And they wouldn't even charge me that much. But that's a lot of modeling. And frankly, there's a lot of magazines that you could put your own artistic work together and be placed in if you're willing to pay for it. So for those of you who say, you know, I can't get my work out there, yeah, you can, but you probably have to pay some fees for it, if you even want to bother. So you may not think it's really that important. Another topic change. If all of you, do you remember the movie To Die For with Nicole Kidman? It was one of those weird setups that Nicole Kidman had made back when I was living in James, Wisconsin. It wasn't a bad movie. It was very interesting, but most of us were actually set up by it because Cersei went around saying that everyone wanted that to happen to her. And it was supposed to be about her, but Nicole Kidman can do that with impunity because Nicole Kidman's part of the Russian circuit and is actually a man. I have to know for you recently, Nicole Zdrajewski, ZDROJWSKI, who was known to a number of women who worked at the State Department down in the Arlington, Virginia area in the 2010 era, is still loose. She just recently stole like $180 from me through a wire transfer. I was trying to get a payment in, and it's just gone. She was in the area and making dumb hate signals that, well, it's, you know, I mean, I know when it's being stolen, but that's the same woman that stole literally thousands from people at Sheffield Court in the 2010 era in Arlington, Virginia. and it was part of a bunch of us being beaten hit over at the Arlington County offices. You know, Ilka Johnson, Pam Bondi was there, Hillary Clinton came by, you know, Nude Caratila, Maria de la Riva. It's a lot of aliases and made up names for people that are basically just dumb traffickers. And it's not really about political party, it's about allegiance to the Russian government and their trafficking systems. But Nicole does a lot of fundraising for Nicole Kidman's project. So what I'm advising you on is the fact that there's a huge rash of fundraising going on for these terrorist groups. That includes Brendan Fraser, to steal from the rest of us to fund their projects instead of just doing what anyone else would do and simply working a job. Or hey, you know what? Not make them. The point about it is that a lot of these projects are put together by the Russia, Spain, China, CCP to find obfuscation of products in the U.S. So if you're feeling there's a lot of hostility coming in from Russia and China on your bank account, there is. They expect you to pay for it so that they can make their weird crap. You know, they want to make Project Hail Mary, which is some disgusting piece of shit that's meant to screw up your brain, and you're supposed to pay for it. Well, no. I don't want to fund it. So. Other topic change. It was the HuffPost who discovered the information of Brian Noam being a cross-dresser and a pervert. It's important to note that he's also Megyn Kelly's husband because they're the same person. And he's gone by the name Scott Langston and Frederick Steiner. So, and he works at both CACI and who's on Hamilton. I don't know if Labatt has ever hired him or Accenture. I only know the two other companies, but I'm sure one of you can figure out the other part. And finally, I have to say this, actually I've got two things here, so it's a two-part ending. We're going to talk about Las Vegas for a second. So Las Vegas has a new residence called it's at the Four Seasons. That looks like a huge mausoleum that you would really check into and never check out of. Looks really gross. I mean, it's supposed to have all these modern features, but I'd be worried that you'd like literally never leave the place and just die there. It reminded me a lot of the big Omni that they had put in down at Charlottesville that people used to check into and commit suicide at. Like weird, overly tan gold colors. You can look at the ad. Let's see. Well, let's see. I just thought if they show this ad to me one more time, I'm gonna vomit. It just looked like some weird, like, commit suicide place. Set up for murders of some kind. Yeah, it certainly puts a different spin on moving into one of these nice retirement communities. So, it's not a hotel, it's a long-term residence. It's just scary. Anyway, so far they're listing the McDonald Highlands in Henderson. No, it's an Azure Luxus and Two Roads development. That's the one. And it won't be coming for quite a while. Let's see. No, here it is. Okay. Yeah, this looks so creepy. Look at this. Yeah, it is the McDonald. Yeah, there it is. It's the colors they're using and as well as the furniture designs, I noticed. 45 stories, 171 residences. I certainly thought the one in Washington D.C. was pretty nice, but this looks too freakish. I don't know how to describe it. You have to be in design like I was and know how they kind of signal about things, but it has a very like culty, creepy look to it. I wouldn't want to live there. But you have to know the other reality about life is that there are people who like to check into those. Same way people went and checked into the that weird Omni hotel down in Charlottesville. I don't even know if there is an Omni in Charlottesville anymore. Let me make sure I have the name right. But I already covered it in a previous season, so I'm not really interested in like continuing to cover that one. Remember I told you there's the woman that they were investigating who went there and committed suicide? I may not have it right. No, I've got it right. Yeah. So like that. Um, uh, it's all important to note that it's like I want to joke around about it and be like, "Who's that for JLo?" Where she can check in and never check out. Or a hotel in California and Las Vegas. Because that's pretty much what she has to do at this point. Her performances look terrible. I need to note for you that she went ahead and tried to do a performance of Diamonds Are Forever. And it was really obvious a DAT performance done off of the work I'd already done on YouTube. So she using the recordings. She used my voice in the past, like directly. People threatened to kill me. Years ago when I was at Luther College and didn't pay me for the work and spent years trying to beat on me. It took a long time for the discovery or stupid doing delay for me. Um, but it's just important to note that she totally, you know, there's nobody who wants to see her shows. They're being canceled. She's being pushed out of the circuit in Las Vegas. I did get a note, a really weird one, that Lalisa has an active hit on her, is probably being killed. Lalisa's a member of Blackpink. I did some work for Blackpink. YG helped me get my protective order. So when you look at Endeavor Corp, don't assume that YG and Endeavor Corp actually have good relationships. You don't. Even if they're even still in business here anymore. But Lalisa is going to be taking over in the fall and starting her own shows there, which people are apparently really excited about in the K-pop world because that's the new thing. JLo's pretty old, not so fresh. So apparently this has been leading to some current friction. Um, I don't know. I would never even mind to go to Las Vegas, but with what's been happening in Las Vegas, I don't think I'd want to. But it's a pretty expensive place. It's no longer a fun place to go hang out for a weekend, rent a motel room, and go to endless buffets like it was in the 70s or 80s, which actually sounds pretty great, right? Like endless buffets and motel rooms and just see a few shows and chill out. Sounds pretty great. Yeah, it's too bad Las Vegas got run, but it's really, really overpriced now, like Disney World, and so. Um, and then for those of you who are interested, my new song has come out that I've released independently. Obviously, you know I'm an actual artist, musician, write and do my own music myself. It's a song called Soon. If you have time to actually watch it or listen to it, it's available on YouTube for free. I'm going to go ahead and play it for you. Yes, I have my own WK channel that I set up that you can see. Wait, hold on. Okay. Yeah, so you can watch those songs for free on YouTube. I'm trying to be really quiet because I'm not bothering anybody else right now. hold on. I'm gonna find this for you because I just posted it on Instagram too today as well as Facebook. So I just want to make sure you guys all have it. Um, yeah, I said like Happy Easter Ween. Here's my new song. Instagram should be right here. Or the teaser from a couple years ago.
The next episode of the Thought Project, just so you know, is coming soon. The next episode of the Thought Project.
I've been making those, so.
Is coming soon.
Ooh, we got like drama.
Hi, episode 9 of Simply Stated, season 3 is coming on OnlyFans at WKDEBORHKAY. So you can see the next episode coming soon on OnlyFans. Thank you. Hi, episode 9 of Simply Stated, season 3 is coming on OnlyFans at WKDEBORHKAY. So you can see the next episode coming soon on OnlyFans. Thank you.
Let's see. Let's see. I'm just gonna look for this one. By the way, there's some new stories breaking right now about Charlie Kirk's death. As you probably know from previous seasons, and this might be really important. It was actually Fatina, who also goes by the name Jackie Wilkie, who also goes by the name Kendall. It's the singer of Max. It's an old woman from Russia that participates in Russian FSB obfuscation campaigns. That now there's been a bunch of work analysis done that's come out that's shown that the bullet doesn't match the accused shooter, which what it comes down to is that she had Charlie Kirk killed on behalf, thank you, on behalf of MS-13 and the Russian FSB and as a setup for Erica Kirk. So American Turning Point USA, whatever you want to call that place, Turning Point USA, the front group, funnels a lot of money for the mafia and gangs. And Erica just decided plain to have Charlie killed. He was planning to divorce her. It's a well-known fact. He decided to stop supporting Donald Trump. And he'd come up with the fact that he was a child abuse victim. And so maybe they're victim of the Epstein cult. And frankly, someone that I thought had some neurological problems, I didn't think should be doing a show, certainly not sitting out in public at schools, going up against psychotics in open space where anyone could approach him and kill him. I always thought it was a setup, but I had reported a long time ago, and it was widely known, even by the current FBI, that he was going to be killed by this person, that it was actually going to turn out to be Jackie Wilkie out of Luther College, where that was the name she was not there as a professor. So it's important to remember that, that this person who's been accused of being his murderer isn't the actual murderer. And I had already confronted the FBI about this like a decade or so ago, like 15 years ago, and they just refused to do anything about it. Which is why nobody really takes the FBI seriously anymore, because they engage in too many setups, too much fabricated evidence coming out of the contracting groups that aren't providing actual evidence. They're just making stuff up, and innocent people going to prison. Even a guy with a psychiatric disorder, people, you have to understand it's not okay to send somebody who's mentally ill weird radio signals and tell them to go around killing people, which is what Jackie Wilkie has been doing it. So, it's now come out that the bullet doesn't match. Hopefully they'll go ahead and arrest Fatina, who also went by the name Kendall, and openly stated that she wanted this country destroyed and said she would only leave once it was totally destroyed. And it was part of the GM plan. Janesville being ruined, banks being ruined there, funder of Kim Kardashian, also known by the name Allison Hannigan, as a Hollywood actress in the 2000s. Not a very successful person, frankly, mentally ill and psychotic, and was openly trying to hang out at the women's shelter that I was stuck in last summer, and was electrocuting and beating up on people at it on behalf of MS-13 and the Russian FSB. So I'm going to try to find this song for you all to play. That's weird. There's a bunch of songs that are supposed to be on here that aren't showing right now. Hold on. Kind of weird when the sign was there like a few hours ago isn't showing all of a sudden. Let's see if the other song is out. It's supposed to be. Interesting. Hold on a second. Okay. We're going to go to my other handy link. Here it is. So I just ended up actually going into the company that I distribute music through and pulled out one of their links for it. But the song is released today. You can listen to all of the work for free. So it's on, YouTube, or should be on YouTube. Or from my Facebook page, I posted a link there. Also on Instagram at Deborah_Corey, so DEBORH_Corey, COREY. And I'm going to go ahead and you definitely want to listen to the whole song or it won't make any sense because it's a song, it's like a journey. I composed it as myself starting in one place and moving into another, so.
It's the only way that I see clear. What have I done? Yeah. You seem to move on easy, and every time I try to fly, I fall without my wings. I feel so small, and every time I see you in my dreams, I see your face. You're haunting me. I guess I miss you, honey. I may have made it rain. Please forgive me. My weakness caused you pain, and I thought was sorry. At night I pray that soon your face will fade away. It's haunting me. I miss you, honey. I guess I miss you, honey. I guess I miss you, honey. And every time I try to fly, I fall and feel without my wings. I feel so small. I guess I miss you, honey. At night, I pray that soon your face will fade away. And every time I try to fly, I feel without my wings. At night, I pray that soon your face will fade away. At night, I pray that soon your face will fade away. At night, I pray that soon your face will fade away.
I was curious what life could look like with less alcohol. I was looking around for where's the interesting non-alcoholic drinks.
Yeah, that must be some weird joke that somebody threw on there. Anyways, that's a new song. You can listen to it for free on YouTube, and the link is on my Facebook page. You can also follow my Instagram, DEBORH_Corey, CUY. Free. It's all over Instagram. You can even play it on TikTok. You can make your own memes with it. But it was a song that was based on some work I did earlier over 20 years ago, didn't get paid for, and I decided to take it and just make it into something else. Just make a whole new artistic project out of it, which is I'm really not the kind of person who's going to sit around and sing about, someone who abused me and how I'm sorry I upset them. I've actually got a person who's going to be like, I just really hope you go away. Like, whenever. Just anytime. Which is probably the way most people in this country feel at this point. About all of the stuff that I'm talking about, the labor trafficking issues. So, this has been another episode of Simply Stated, Odds and Ends Season 5 with me, Deborah Kay. This is episode 21. I hope you're all doing well, whether you've been celebrating Passover or going to be celebrating Easter. For those of you who need to be reminded, remember that Easter is a portal holiday like Halloween is. It's pagan. It's not really Christian, or just Christian. And you also have Beltane around the same time, just like you have Samhain around Halloween. So, I like to call it Easterween. I think it's the spring version of Halloween. I kind of celebrate it that way, complete with pumpkins and like bunny rabbits and mixing the two together. So, yeah, and whatever holidays are right now. But anyway, so have a good one. I'll see you again soon. Thanks, bye.